Coming up this week, GM drops the price for the Bolt EV and EUV. Ford wants to change their sales model. DeLorean officially unveils their new EV, and more. Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 108 of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and interviews with industry experts. This week will be a little different. I'm actually doing the podcast live on YouTube. It's my first time trying this, but it's something I've been wanting to try out for a while and maybe transition to doing the podcast in this format for the future. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit like on the video, subscribe to the EV Resource channel, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Before we get started with the news this week, I want to thank our podcast partner, Titan Auto and Tire in Moseley, Virginia, for their support. Titan is one of the very few independent shops in Central Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs, and from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. For more information and to schedule an appointment for your vehicle, go to TitanAutoTire.com. That's TitanAutoTire.com. All right, so on to the news this week. First up, we're talking about GM pricing the Chevy EV, the Bolt EV and Bolt EUV, rather, much less, actually. They've dropped the pricing on what was one of the least expensive EVs already. So now they've actually dropped the price quite a bit. It looks like they've dropped it by almost $6,000 on the Bolt EV and $6,300 on the EUV, making them now most likely the very, very least expensive EVs, brand new, that you can buy on sale today. This is actually pretty interesting that they've done this in the recent market with supply chain issues and costs for things going up and up and up for every vehicle. For GM to really dramatically lower the price for these vehicles is a big signal of their intent to sell them. Now, according to CNBC, this article here, they actually say that they reached out to GM and they didn't get a direct response. GM basically declined to comment on the profitability of the Bolt EV and EUV now with the lower pricing. It'll be interesting to see because I can't imagine that there's going to be much of a profit margin at all at this point. Maybe they're going to even lose money on these. We don't know. I would expect, though, that this will definitely boost Bolt EV and EUV sales quite a bit. The market is looking for inexpensive EVs. Myself, I've been kind of shopping around. I mean, I always do. But I've been looking for inexpensive EVs, and it really looks like this might be a pretty good option. I have reviewed the refreshed Bolt EV. I haven't actually driven the EUV yet. They're basically the same. The EUV is a little bit bigger. I think it's 6 inches longer and it's styled a little differently. And it does come with Super Cruise, so that's something you won't get in the Bolt EV. But honestly, they're going to drive fairly similarly, and I've reviewed the Bolt EV, the refreshed one, and it's really nice. The seats are a lot better. I like the styling better. In many ways, it's what GM should have built for the Bolt EV in the beginning, and one of the things that I said when I reviewed it is that it was like $5,000 to $10,000 too expensive. I just didn't see the value proposition for where it sat in the marketplace. So now with this price change, lowering it down to under $27,000 for a brand new EV, I'm excited about this. I'm not really a huge fan of GM these days just because of the personal issues I've had with my Spark EV. But honestly, if GM's going to come out and really aim for that entry-level market for electric vehicles, that's something that I definitely think we should all support. So I'm excited about this one. It looks really like it's going to be a great deal. Of course, they don't have the $7,500 tax credit that most of the other automakers currently have. Tesla, GM, and almost Toyota. Toyota hasn't hit it, but they're very close. So they have to compete with Nissan and I mean every other automaker at this point they're going to qualify for the $7,500 tax credit. So that makes a big difference. I'm not sure if that's the exact reason why they decided to do this, but regardless of reason, I think this is a pretty good deal. On next to Ford, let's see if this will shift over. This is my first time doing this live, so you guys will have to forgive me if there's some stuff that's kind of going along with it. Jim Farley is looking to shake things up. Of course, it's been a couple weeks, maybe a month or two ago, actually, that Ford announced that they were going to split their business plan. The internal combustion engine business is going to stay, and then they're splitting with the EV side of things. And it looks like Jim Farley and Ford want to shake things up even further by saying that all of their electric vehicles are going to be sold in a similar sales model to Tesla, completely online, non-negotiable pricing, and basically keeping the dealers out of the process, which if you're a Ford dealer, I can't imagine that you'd be too thrilled to hear about this. I'm kind of split. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Leave it in the comments, but I'm kind of split that dealers have a place. Now, not when they're going to mark up pricing and you know, 10, 15 or more $1,000 for a vehicle because it's in high demand and there's very little supply. We've seen that on the Ford F-150 Lightning and many other vehicles too, that dealerships are marking up prices. So I'm not saying dealerships are necessarily the best way to sell vehicles, but dealerships also help keep things competitive. If you go 100% online, you no longer have a choice. You don't have the ability to get the best deal, if it were. You're relying entirely on the automaker to sell it for a certain price. So that'll be interesting. Generally, though, I think it's great. I mean, people shop for cars. They do all of their research online much before ever stepping foot into a dealership to buy a car. So people are already online. Obviously, Tesla has shown that that is a sales model that can be very successful as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out for Ford. I didn't see anywhere in this article when they plan on actually starting that. It seems to be more like it was just their intent and something that Jim Farley is talking about. And apparently the rest of this doesn't load. I am like seriously maxing out the capability of my computer. So if things don't load very well, sorry about that. I'm trying to give you guys something to look at instead of just me talking. Yeah, page unresponsive. I'll wait. Actually, forget it. We'll go on to the next. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So CarMax has a lot of data. Naturally, they have a web page. People are searching for vehicles and certain terms on their web page. They actually recently released a report on EV interest. And this is something that Jennifer Senspa on Clean Technica had put out there, that basically CarMax from February of this year to March of this year received 1.5 times greater search volume for the term electric. So people are searching for electric vehicles, and likely the big cause of that is the jump in gas prices. I've got a loaner vehicle from the dealership while my Spark EV is waiting on its new battery, and I had to get gas. It's a Chevy Impala. Gas was $4.59 a gallon, which, of course, coming from somebody who hasn't gotten gas in 3.5 years, this is just, it's kind of a big shock. I feel really the same pain, I guess, as people who don't have electric vehicles. I can't imagine having to pay this always. You know, I'm looking forward to getting my EV back and not having to pay for gas anymore. But it's makes sense that people are going to be searching more and more for electric vehicles. What I find interesting, though, is last week on episode 107, I can't speak. I was speaking about and sharing a report that I believe was EY. They were saying that only 7% of people here in the US are actually interested in an electric vehicle for their next car. And if you add in hybrids and plug-in hybrids, that number jumps to 29%, which really still isn't a lot. That contradicts with a lot of other reports that I've been seeing, and this one included, where people are searching, they're looking, they're going, hey, this is not something I want to keep doing, buying gas. What's the alternative? This report also says that EV test drives were noticeably up in the same period, about a year and a half. All right, 1.5 times the previous year. So you can see on this graph, let's see if I can get my pointer over there. I don't think my pointer's showing up on the screen. Anyway, you can see on the graph how much more significant. I mean, it's starting a real upshift on the curve there. So that's pretty significant. I'm not going to necessarily continue down this because it talks more about specifically CarMax stuff. If you're interested in what they have to offer, you can always check out their website. But we will go ahead and move on to the next. So this is coming from Bloomberg, saying that they expect EV sales to triple by the year 2025, but that's still not enough to reach net zero emissions. So one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people are interested in EVs or switching to EVs is because they are better when it comes to tailpipe emissions. They have none, and it's better for the planet. That's not the only reason to switch to an EV, and certainly wasn't the reason that I made that decision, but it is something that a lot of people are interested in. So I wanted to share this with you, that they are actually looking at the expected sales for EVs to actually dramatically increase between now and 3 years from now, 2025. They say that the sales they expect to soar to 20.6 million. That's a lot, considering that right now, I mean, Tesla's selling about 1 million EVs a year, and they are dramatically selling much, much more than any other automaker combined. So to shift to 20.6 million, that is a big, big difference. Yet, for all of the expected sales, it's not going to be enough to replace all of the emissions from the existing gas-powered and diesel-powered vehicles that are on the road. So if you're interested in the ecological benefit, the tailpipe man, doing this live is hard. I have a lot of respect for other people that are doing this. But the reduced emissions, it's just not going to be enough to get to net zero by then. So we need more. We need more EV sales. I'm all about that. I'm going to skip to the next article. I hope this is okay for you guys. This is something that I might be doing regularly. So obviously the more I do it, the better I'll get. And give me feedback. Seriously, like put it in the comments on the video. I definitely want to improve and make sure I can do things as good as possible. So the next story here is about Aptera, and I am kind of partial to them. One, because I like vehicles that are outside the norm, and certainly looking at the Aptera, it's definitely falls into that category. I do, in full disclosure, have a reservation for my own. So I put down $100 deposit for the Aptera. So I am one of the 22,000 reservations that they have. A little bit about the Aptera. They do have different battery sizes. You can get a 25 kilowatt, 40 or 100 kilowatt hour batteries. The 100 kilowatt hour battery, they say, is going to provide 1,000 miles of range per charge. That's where this headline's coming from. Fred Lampert over at Electrek wrote this. However, I go for the 25 kilowatt hour battery because that's 250 miles. For me, that's plenty. I don't drive further than that often, and then I can just charge along the way. So I'm not worried about having a big battery that's going to be more expensive. But I'm really excited to hear a lot of the newer updates from Aptera this week, because the more reservations they have, the more serious interest they have, then the more investor interest they can get, the more money they have. Obviously, they can ramp up production quicker and sooner. They also recently this week actually announced some supply chain contracts. So they are going to have like wiring harnesses and all the supplies that they are really looking for to get this launched. Now, Aptera is an interesting backstory. I'm not going to get into the history of the company. Perhaps that'll be something that I do in a different video. But they've been around for a little while, and this is actually their second go at trying to make this vehicle. And I think the timing now couldn't be better. When they originally started and tried to get something to production, I think it was too early, and people were not really interested in EVs. They started in 2008. I think it was 2008, maybe 2009, and it just didn't work out. So the original founders kind of sold off all the IP to a Chinese company, and now they've bought it back. They reacquired the intellectual property, and they have been doing amazing things. They have their beta prototype. I believe the testing on that is finished. They're moving on to the Gamma prototype and should start series production. I'm expecting them to start production later next year. I'm not expecting to get my Aptera until probably 2024, just because I wasn't one of the first people to reserve. But at 22,000 reservations, I certainly wasn't the last either. And I'd be interested to see if interest grows further. I mean, looking at the Aptera, I'll scroll back up to the top here so you can see that picture. This is not a vehicle that looks normal. So it's not going to be a mainstream vehicle that a lot of people you would expect to be interested in. That's why I think the 22,000 reservations that they're saying hold a lot more weight than something like the F-150 reservations, which it looks like a regular truck. Regular people are going to throw down $100 to reserve their place in line. But those people also probably reserved a place in line for the Rivian R1T and the Cybertruck, and that based on whatever is available, they'll make decisions later and then cancel the reservations for the other two. With the Aptera, I don't think too many people are going to be canceling the reservations because it is such a unique vehicle. People that are reserving one are actually interested. They're not going to just throw $100 that's refundable and cancel later on down the road because there's another vehicle that is similar that they would rather buy. For the Aptera, there isn't anything similar. Yes, there are other three-wheeled electric vehicles. Yes, like the Arcimoto, which of course I'm a huge fan of, or the Electromechanica Solo, and there are a few others. I know Nimbus hasn't reached production yet with their Halo, but that's a three-wheeled electric vehicle that will be a single-seater. It's interesting too. Take a look at that if you're interested. The Nimbus Halo, that's going to be an interesting car. But the Aptera, only people that are interested in this are really going to put down a reservation. So I'm excited about that. I think that it has a lot of potential. The company says that the reservations are worth $800 million in orders. That's pretty significant. So I'm excited for the company. This is one car that if I lived in California, I would drive to where they are and really check it out. I want to drive one of these so badly. So maybe eventually my time will come. Next, let's talk about Lexus. And Toyota as a whole hasn't exactly been very EV friendly. Globally anyway. I mean, some of their marketing in Europe has actually been anti-EV. But in the recent months, it seems like they are making a shift. And of course, with Lexus, they're really able to make more of a premium vehicle that's going to have higher profit margins. And that's where a lot of companies are starting with their EVs, because they want to make sure that they can make money on these before kind of bringing it down to a mass market vehicle. Like Lexus, obviously the RX SUV, that is one that when they finally electrify that, that's going to be their big game changer. So Lexus, actually, one of their sport concepts, I think it's one of the best looking electric vehicles to date, honestly. But I like the sporty style. They are going to make its first public appearance at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, which is in the UK this year. Well, every year, that's where it is. But it's later this month in June, and it's going to really just show off what the company has been working on. I mean, it's a concept. That's what concept vehicles are for. I am excited about this because this is likely what they're going to put out there as the successor to the LFA, which was their $400,000 supercar. This is kind of their halo vehicle, if you will. When they start to make this, whenever that would be, this is going to be something that screams, look at us and what we're capable of doing. So that's important. Overall, Lexus is expecting to have a full lineup of EVs by 2030. So we'll see. Toyota doesn't move quickly. Typically, they are about 5 to 10 years behind everybody else because they want to wait to see what is a proven technology and then come out with that. They've never, with the exception of the Prius anyway, they've never really been a brand or a company that pushes the boundaries of technology. So it'll be interesting to see how Toyota responds to the EV stuff, and certainly it makes a lot of sense to start with Lexus. Now, there's another really good looking sports car that's an EV that I wanted to talk about this week, and that is DeLorean. DeLorean this week has officially unveiled all of the images for their DeLorean EV, which, of course, DeLorean, we all know for the original, the DMC-12, I believe, which was the vehicle in the Back to the Future movies, stainless steel body, angular, very cool for its time, honestly, very cool for now. Well, the company hadn't gone away. The name and all the IP was purchased by a company in Texas, I believe. And since then, they have been working on a number of different vehicles. This just happens to be one of them. There are others that I believe Joe Boras on the Electrify News podcast interviewed the CEO of DeLorean, and he was talking about, I think, 4 new EV vehicles that they're planning on bringing out. So there is more to see. This is basically the Medusa concept, or internally known as the DMC-24. It's going to have 4 independent gull-wing doors, which is interesting because the renders, at least from what I can see, are only showing 2. So maybe we can dive into the pictures and see that a little bit further. But the specs on this are what make this really exciting. 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, which for I don't want to say bigger, but bigger car is somewhat standard these days. I mean, of course, the Model S had a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack for a while. The Lucid Air is a little bit bigger than that. And there are others. But they say it's going to have over 300 miles of range, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. And of course, being a DeLorean, they had to give the 0 to 88 mile an hour time frame. And of course, you know why if you've seen Back to the Future. They say 0 to 88 will come in 4.35 seconds, which honestly, I think that would even be good for a 0 to 60. So 4.350 to 88. Top speed, they're projecting to be 155 miles an hour, which for most people is plenty. Pricing is going to be up there, though. You're looking at $175,000 for this. So if you look at competitors, you've got basically the Porsche Taycan, which is in a similar price range depending on trim and how you spec it out. And the performance is going to be similar, actually, with the Taycan. The Plaid Model S from Tesla, which, of course, is just going to destroy everything when it comes to 0 to 60. The Plaid, I think, starts now at like 130, 135 or so. So the Plaid would be less expensive, but it doesn't look like this. This is one of the best looking cars, I think, that I mean, they did some real work on the styling. Let me see if I can bring this up a little bit better here. So you get some side shots. That's cutting off the front. I don't know why it's cutting that off, guys. I'm sorry. But here's the back. Now, something that the original DeLorean had was the louvers on the back window. They brought that back into the styling. I think that is fantastic. That's something that's definitely a nod. Of course, the gull wing doors. The original DeLorean had gull wing doors. It was one of the things that made it so iconic. This does as well. I don't see 4, though. And so I'm actually a little confused about that. I'm seeing 2. Let me know what you guys think. If I'm missing something, obviously that's important. Let's see. Let me... minimalist interior, actually. I'm kind of surprised about that. I think they could do more. But yeah, I mean, take a look at this. That's a good looking car. If I had the money, I'd get one. And I think the reason is because it's a DeLorean and that name has so much associated with it. You know, there's a lot of brand recognition and you're not going to see too many of these. The biggest, well, I wouldn't say the biggest, but one of the issues I have with the Model S Plaid is they're making a ton. I mean, I see them fairly often, actually, and here in Richmond, Virginia, which we don't have a whole lot of EVs running around. But just the other day, I ran into an owner at a Sheetz, and he had a Model S Plaid, and we were talking for a little bit. So they're common. Something like this, it's not going to be common. It's definitely going to be something that's very rare and a head turner at that. I'm not sure why they're showing the wheel. I mean, that's cool, but whatever. I really like the back. This is a car that I could follow for quite a while. Not that the front isn't nice too. I mean, the front looks pretty nice, but that is very nice. So let's see what else is in here. I don't think there's anything more official for that. Yeah, not really. So there you go. What do you think of the DeLorean? I'm a fan. I like it. I'm excited to see this actually on the road, and that'll be good. So that's all I had for the news actually this week, and I've not been keeping track of time, so I have no idea if this has gone faster or slower. Actually, no, this is around the same time, about a half hour. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Before I do, a little update on my personal situation with my Spark EV. If you've been following along with the saga, as you will, it's been kind of a roller coaster. The story's been interesting. I had written an article that really just was picked up by a lot of people about GM no longer supporting the Spark EV, saying that there were no batteries and there wouldn't be, and owners were only getting offers for a buyback. Basically, GM would buy the car back because under warranty, they didn't have any other option. I was told this. Other owners were told this. I called around to multiple GM dealerships around the country asking about the part. They told me it was showing discontinued. So I wrote an article about it because I thought that was something that people needed to know. A couple days later, GM came out and said, no, we're supporting the Spark EV. Everything's fine. Owners will get batteries if they need them. And just don't look behind the curtain. Everything's fine. Well, I put my car into the dealership on April 7th. When GM came out with that official statement from the company, they told me personally that I was going to get a battery in a couple weeks and I'd be back on the road. Well, we're coming up on 2 months. My car is still at the dealership. The dealership has no ETA on a battery. None. They say that there aren't any batteries available and they don't know when new ones are going to be made. Not a single person from GM, even the district executive that was assigned to my case, dead silent. None of them have bothered to reach out and give me an update, not on my car or the entire situation. about Spark EVs. In that same time frame, I have been contacted by other Spark EV owners that have had battery failures, and they are being told what I was told originally, that there are no batteries, there aren't going to be any batteries, and they're being offered a buyback. Well, that's contrary to the statement that GM put out. So I don't know what to think at this point. I'm not being offered a buyback anymore. I'm sure if I asked for one, I could probably get them to start that process again, but I don't want that. I want my car, and I want a new battery because obviously the old one failed, or I think probably one cell failed and maybe drew down the two on either side of it, where if it weren't under warranty, I'd rip the pack apart and repair it and fix it myself. And I probably could have had that done by now. 2 months is a long time to wait, and it doesn't look like there's any end in sight. So if you have a Spark EV and you're having some similar issues where you're waiting on a battery from GM and you haven't already reached out and let me know, send me an email to hello@ev-resource.com, because I'm trying to kind of collect all of the stories from everybody. I'm undecided yet on whether I'm going to write another article or not. I will reach out to GM for an official response to the situation now before I do that, because I definitely want their take on it, if you will. Other than that, I don't really think anything's going on. I am going to be putting out some more Arcimoto videos because I spent some time with the flatbed and the Deliverator working on that. I've got probably the next video I'm going to have out is on XCare, which is an extended warranty service contract from Accelerate. So look forward to that soon. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe, follow along, hit the bell for notifications. That way, all of the future videos for EV Resource, you'll get notified about them and you can check it out. If you do want to listen to any of the podcasts audio only, let's say you're in the car and don't want to have up a YouTube video, you can find them on pretty much all of the major podcast platforms at this point. Also on the webpage, ev-resource.com, under the podcast section. So thank you, those of you who have been with me. Looks like I've got comments from family. Woohoo! Thanks for supporting me, guys. John, let's see what you got here. Sorry, I haven't been looking at that because I've had the other page up. Yes, I completely agree that more people are going to be interested in the Aptera once they see them on the road, or at least curious. Seeing EVs and riding in an EV is the best way to sell it. So yeah, certainly once you see them on the road, I think that'll make a big difference. Missy, thank you. And John, again, front of the EV, red lights, DeLorean had red lights. Yeah, that's true. Good thing it's probably not going to have red lights on there. Let's see. Can we get a picture of the front to look at that more specifically? Honestly, I don't know. They're similar in styling, but I don't think you'd see the front or the back of a car. Yeah, let's go back to that one. Looking like, well, yeah, I can kind of see what you mean. If they had headlights more into the fender, I think that might make it look more like the front of a car. So I can see what you mean on that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's one where I think looking at it once it gets on the road, yeah, then it'll be good. You got their official statement originally. They were being transparent then. Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. As time goes further with GM, I try to have some patience, but I definitely am losing patience. I don't know. I think I'll probably stop before I say something that I don't want to. But yeah, so that'll be all for this week. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you all next time.